Good afternoon. I'm sure you've already heard from the Democrats, so we might have a slightly different view of where things are, but I think everybody agrees that we need to fund the 2026 Department of Homeland Security Appropriations bill. It's the only one left. We've got 96% of the government funded, but the DHS bill, as you know, represents not only Border Patrol and ICE, but also FEMA and the Coast Guard and TSA, cybersecurity, a whole bunch of things that are really important to the American people. And so our view is we need to try and get this last bill across the finish line, and I think there have been some really productive conversations around that between Republicans and Democrats, between the White House and Democrats here in the Senate. One thing Republicans are not interested in, obviously, is making it harder, not easier, for dangerous, illegal aliens in this country to be detained and deported. We do believe in making it easier, not harder, for law enforcement officials to do their job. So those are things that we are focused on in these conversations. But I think it's fair to say that there have been good faith efforts. The Democrats, you know, they didn't finally get text available until just this weekend. The White House is now responding to that, and I think it's important that we allow those conversations to go forward and see if there might be a path toward getting an outcome that would fund the Department of Homeland Security until the end of the fiscal year, which is September 30th. So it's I would say again, it's a work in progress, but I would hope that the Democrats here in the Senate, if it takes more time, which I believe it will, would be amenable to allowing us to get an extension of the continuing resolution to allow more time for those negotiations to continue. As you all will recall, we made it very clear at the outset that we thought the amount of time they allocated toward this wasn't nearly going to be sufficient, and clearly it's not. But I do think that based upon the progress that's being made toward getting to a result and a conclusion, we ought to allow some additional time in order to make that happen. So again, these are important agencies of the American people, all of which need to be funded, and these federal employees at TSA and other agencies shouldn't be held hostage by the Democrats in potentially another government shutdown. So the best way to avoid that is to strike a deal, and I think that means we got to keep people at the table.
Leader Thune, good afternoon. Where are we with the SAVE Act? Are you just going to allow a vote that fails, or are you committed to Republicans and conservatives who say we need to change something here, we need to maybe alter the filibuster to pass that? Where are you in those talks right now?
We're having a very robust conversation among our Senate Republican colleagues about the path forward. I think most are supporters of, I certainly am, of the SAVE Act and what it attempts to accomplish. We have a similar law in my state of South Dakota that requires a showing of an ID in order to vote, and that's something that I think, you know, ought to be applied across the country. You ought to be able to prove that you're a citizen of this country in order to be able to vote. How we get to that vote remains to be seen.
It seems like a real challenge, though. I mean, especially when you have people saying you got to change the filibuster, something that you're not willing to do at this stage.
Well, it's not just me not being willing to do it. There aren't anywhere close to the votes, not even close, to nuking the filibuster. And so that idea is something, although it continues to be put out there, is something that doesn't have a future. So is there another way of getting there? We'll see, and that's the conversation we're having with our colleagues right now.
They're agreement of DHS funding CRTs. They expect to push to separate the sub-agencies that you listed from the DHS funding itself.
We'll try and have we'll have a vote on funding everything, because that was the bill that was negotiated and agreed upon by both Republicans and Democrats before the Democrats decided they weren't for it. But that bill is still available. It's the bill that was passed by the House of Representatives, and that will enable us to be able to vote to keep all of those agencies open. But I think in the end, the ideal solution here is to fund all of the agencies and departments that fall under the Department of Homeland Security, and make sure that that entire appropriations bill gets signed into law by the President.
Several members of the British political class, the royal family, have lost their positions as a result of them appearing in the Epstein files. That same level of penalty has not happened here in the United States, particularly with members of the Trump cabinet, Howard Lutnick in particular. Do you think there should be more scrutiny around Americans who have appeared in the Epstein files?
Well, look, I think it's going to be, ultimately what happens there is probably going to be up to the American people. And what I've been for, and I've been very clear about this from the outset, is full disclosure. Get the information out there. Let's have transparency. And I think that's being done. And so, you know, for people whose names appear or in some context might be in the Epstein files, they're going to have to answer the questions around that, and I think the American people are going to have to make judgments about whether or not they think those answers are sufficient.
But should the Senate investigate that?
Can I ask you about whether you expect or hope for endorsements in either Georgia or in Texas at this point, and if not, why not? I mean, Trump endorsements.
Right. Well, I think Georgia's probably a slightly different case. Texas, of course, is coming up. March 3rd is the primary. I think, as you all know, I'm supporting and endorsed and I'm doing everything I can to help Senator John Cornyn. He's a very effective conservative senator for the state of Texas and does a lot of good things for our country on so many issues. And so we're all in there, but I don't know what the other endorsement situation may look like where the president's concerned. He makes his own decisions about that in his own time. But what I can tell you is we think that John Cornyn not only deserves to be reelected, but also ensures that Texas stays in Republican column when it comes to United States Senate, and frankly helps down ballot races in the House of Representatives as well.
One more.
What is your understanding of the White House proposal? I don't know if you've already met with Speaker Johnson, but are you meeting with him this afternoon?
Right.
Can you just kind of outline the Republican position here and the White House position in that counter proposal? And also, just with respect to time, how much more time do you think these negotiations need?
Hard to say exactly how much time, but probably more time than in the end of the week. The Democrats took a better part of a week and a half to get their proposal in, and now the White House has reacted to it, responded, submitted a counter proposal, which the Democrats are evaluating. And I think, like I said, I believe that that to me represents and demonstrates progress. I don't know, how much more time would be required, but I think it's fair to say that it's going to take some amount of time, and we should at least extend the continuing resolution to allow for that to continue. And in terms of what's respective pieces and the individual proposals that have been made, I think you all know what the top-level issues are. There are certain sort of red lines I think both sides have, things they're not going to negotiate on, but there are some things they are going to negotiate on, and that's where I think the potential deal space is here, and we ought to give both sides an opportunity to try and find it. But as I said earlier, we are very committed to making sure that federal law enforcement officers are able to do their jobs and to be safe doing them. And we are certainly not going to be in favor of anything that makes it easier for dangerous illegal aliens to be, or I should say makes it harder for dangerous illegal aliens to be detained and deported. So those are kind of the the parameters I would say with respect to where I think Republicans are, but there are a number of areas of I think there's a range of ideas there that we could find some resolution on. So hopefully we'll have time to do that. Thank you.
Leader, thank you.